SF Technology really specialises in clean energy. We do everything from the power electronic side, the inverters, the controllers, through to the drive system side. So we do things for off-highway, on-highway vehicles, but also energy storage and actual grid connections and infrastructure changes.
You're obviously trying to get into the Chinese market. How receptive have the Chinese been?
The Chinese have been pretty receptive. It's really about the technology changes we have for the Chinese market. The great thing about the Chinese market is it's moving very quick. It's a fast-paced market that's got a huge amount of scale, but there's no legacy, and the infrastructure of legacy isn't there. So there's a need to make change quickly.
Got a bit of a reputation, the Chinese, being hard to deal with. How are you finding them?
The Chinese are actually very straightforward. They know what they want, they know where they're going, and they have a purpose and a very quick time frame. They are commercially ruthless, but they are very good businessmen, and it's nice to have a professional interaction with good businessmen.
And what are you hoping to get out of today?
Today is going to be quite interesting. It's one really about getting the pace of how we can accelerate our position in China. We see it as a strategic direction for our organisation, and today is really about putting some emphasis on how we speed up our execution in that market sector.
We work on Invest in Suffolk to attract businesses and grow businesses in Suffolk, and working with LinksEast gives us an excellent opportunity to grow this offer.
Are there any encouraging signs for the Chinese market?
Yeah, I mean, we have sectors that they're interested in and vice versa, and we're hoping to develop these links.
Well, we're here to engage with LinksEast and to engage in the discussion, the Anglo-Chinese discussion. As you'll know, EDF Energy is a long-standing partner with CGN, with whom we're looking to take forward new nuclear build projects at Sizewell C and potentially at Bradwell B in Essex as well.
And how do you find the Chinese to deal with?
Well, we have a long-standing relationship with CGN Group. They've worked with EDF Energy around the world on nuclear projects for many, many years. So we have a very innovative and very energetic approach to taking forward projects.
Well, apart from hosting the lunch at the Co-op's head office, I'm here because it's important for the region that we deliver inward investment and that we generate excitement and enthusiasm for all the good stuff that we have in this region.
Indeed. Are you excited and encouraged by what's going on with this region and into China?
Well, I think it's absolutely fantastic that we're becoming internationally focused, we're looking outward just as well as inward, and the fact that we've got such great produce, food and drink especially, that we can export to China is fantastic.
So what's the big message that you're trying to put across?
Well, I think for me it's about that Norfolk and Suffolk is open for business, and with things like artificial intelligence, that we'll embrace a new way of doing things.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's very nice, and glad to meet all of you. And I was asked to talk a little bit about AI, so it's a bit of a challenge because I'm a technologist, so I have to make sure that I don't bore you. And it's also a topic I can rant on for hours, so please feel free to stop me at any point and or ask questions if you have any. So just a little bit about my background. I'm a computer scientist by training. I did my PhD back in Germany, and I have about 27 years of experience in data analysis, machine learning, and AI. And in 1999, I came over here to BT Research, and I'm now running the data science research over in Industrial Park. And data science is basically the exploitation of data using statistics and machine learning and AI methods to make better decisions. And this is the kind of stuff I'm interested in. We have actually quite a long history of using AI in Industrial Park. And so over 20 years ago, we already have solutions that come out of the area of AI in the business. So one example would be workforce automation. So we have engineers, we have a large engineering workforce, and we need to send the right person to the right job at the right time. And that takes into account things like travel time, the skills of the engineer, the requirements of the job, the timing, the scheduling. And this is something that is handled by an AI system that is doing the workforce optimization. And that recomputes the whole schedule for the workforce several times a day, something like every 10 minutes or so. just to make sure that the right engineer goes to the right spot. We also have to parcel up the country into areas where engineers should take jobs from. So it's important to understand that an engineer who's based in Ipswich is not suddenly sent to Edinburgh to do a job. Right? So they need to stay within a local area, and that depends on the other local areas of other engineers. So this is all done by AI. Or the planning of our network, when we have to deploy a new network, where should we run the cables, where should we put the cabinets? This is a large optimization job, which is done by an AI system. And it can do it in minutes or hours, what planners needed to do over days or weeks in the past. So these are the kind of what we call standard AI. So this is technology, this is around since the 60s. And is typically around optimization, planning, and search. And this is AI. But it has become so commonplace that it's no longer considered AI. So you all probably have a piece of AI in your pocket or your handbag. So you have a smartphone. And this is the new style of AI that we see being talked about. And this is voice recognition, for example. So you have something on your phone, and you can talk to it. And it talks back. And this is something that has been enabled through exploitation of data, faster computation that you can put on a chip, and the constant connection to the network. Because when you talk to your voice client on your phone, the voice is actually being sent somewhere in the cloud, is analyzed there, turned into text, interpreted, and a response is generated. This is turned into speech, and this is sent back to your phone. So it's quite an involved piece of tech that relies on a lot of things that have to happen in order to make these things reality. And this is possible now. You also have some AI on your phone that you would no longer consider AI. So if you look on Google Maps, for example, and you want to know what's the way from here to Industrial Park, it plots your route, tells you it's taking 13 minutes. This is something that came out of AI. It's finding the shortest path in a map. It's very easy to do for humans. You just look at the map and you, yeah, okay, this is the road, and you immediately find it. For a computer, that's very difficult to do. And these kind of developments have taken place in the 60s, 70s, and they are now in consumer services on your phone. And they are so commonplace that nobody thinks they are AI. What we see being reported in the press in terms of AI, what has caused this hype over the past few years, has been made possible by advances in what we call machine learning. So this is where you take data and you have an action that is somehow related to the data. And data can be something like speech. Right? So if I say something into a microphone, that's turned into data, and the computer can analyze it. It can come up with a response, or it can be an image. And the other important area where things have gone much further is image recognition. And you all know these examples about Google, about recognizing cats and dogs in pictures. This is the kind of toy example where they have started to train these systems with. And so the data there would be the image, and the action is the label. So you know this is a cat, this is a dog. And the technology behind this is something that was already around in the 80s. But it wasn't possible to use it at this scale because the amount of computation you have to do is so vast, and you need so many examples. You need millions of these pictures, and they all have to be labeled so that the computer can generalize and say, okay, this is a cat, this is a dog. And the way a computer does this has nothing to do with human intelligence. When you and I look at a picture and have a recognition, this is completely different to what happens in the computer. So what the computer does is kind of a statistical, mathematical algorithm that it follows. And it is very capable in recognizing images. And we have applications in medicine, for example, where the computer looks at X-rays or MRI images to detect cancerous cells. And they have become as good as surgeons or medical practitioners in doing these things. They make different mistakes. So if you put the human and the machine together, you become much better than either of them before. And this is the main advantage of these systems these days. It's the augmentation. So if we bring them together with human capabilities, we can do something that is much more efficient, much better than it was ever before. It's not so much about replacing humans. So we are nowhere near this sort of intelligence that you see in science fiction movies, called the Singularity or the Terminator. These things come far out, and we haven't made a lot of progress in these areas. So something that is called human level intelligence is not on the cards. All these capabilities are based, very much rooted in mathematics and statistics. They look very human-like because you can recognize a cat, the computer can recognize a cat, but so can a mouse, right? So it's saying that just because a computer can recognize a picture, that this is human level, is a step too far. But it enables a lot of exciting capabilities, and we will see more of that. So these kind of abilities of recognizing images, faces, situations, maybe crops in a field, which strawberry to pick. These are capabilities that are driven by these developments, and they become commonplace and cheap. So that means they can be exploited. And the challenges in adopting these technologies these days is not even so much technical, but being aware that they exist. So the business leaders have to be aware that these capabilities are available and have to get the creativity and the mindset, how can we exploit this? Where does it make sense? And it also involves rethinking things like automation and jobs. And so if you think about where can AI help, where can it make jobs automatic, you sometimes get areas that are completely surprising. So just recently I saw a presentation about a company that has software that reads documents, like legal documents. And if you have to do due diligence in some kind of commercial case, where lawyers have to read through thousands of documents, some of this work can't be done because you don't have the time. So you have to make random selections of documents. An AI system now can read everything and can bring the documents that are important to the front, label them, say, have a look here, and then the human expert focuses on this and makes the decision. This is an example of what's possible today. And the automation is not getting rid of the lawyer, but reducing the amount of menial work is reducing the menial work you have to do. And or you can do it on reading contracts, find out what are your obligations in a contract, these kind of things. And so if you think about automation, it is also surprising. Let's take the example of an airline and a plane. And which part of the flight crew do you think you could automate? It's the pilot, right? You're right. It's the pilot. We can automate pilots for 20, 30 years easily because there's an autopilot. And the cabin crew who brings you your coffee is not something you can automate. You can't just put a robot that runs up and down the aisle and hands out coffee. It's all about the human factor and the human touch, right? The interaction. And this is the kind of jobs that will survive. The kind of highly specialized technical jobs are more easily replaceable by AI. So it's easier to automate a surgeon than a nurse, right? These are the kind of things you have to think about. And we see AI very much as an opportunity to augment human capabilities and improve the way jobs are being done today. So make them more efficient and let the humans focus on what's really important, where the decision-making sits. And in terms of automation, the opportunities are bringing decision-making based on data into processes. So everything where some automation is already in place, maybe it has been done through programming and hard coding, where some of the decisions that are made haven't really been able to look at all the different opportunities that are there. They're just hard-coded. So that means some of the things fall through and can't be done. So this is where we can take data, analyze it, come up with a prediction and a model, and inject it into an existing process and make it more efficient and more automated. And so the humans can then again concentrate on what's important. So it's a very exciting area. So we will see changes happening, and so things like virtual assistants, things like Alexa, Google Now, Siri, these things will become better. They're still not great. So my Alexa sometimes plays music when I tell it to switch off lights. And you get, but that will get better. Also, the kind of image recognition enables a lot of stuff that can be done. New types of sensors that can see things and react to it. And so this is where I would expect things where consumers and where we will see changes. Obviously, everybody talks about autonomous cars. And the Chancellor said we're going to see them in like 2021 on the roads. Let's see how quickly that goes. And it's easy to run them on a motorway. And, the lanes are clearly marked and everybody behaves. But the challenges come if you have to drive down a single country lane and you have to negotiate who goes into the space to pull over. And but we will see things happening there too. So there's a lot of development in that space as well. And these are probably the kind of things that we will see impact our lives very early on. But I would say, in terms of business, what's important, be aware. So try to learn as much as possible about not the technology, but the opportunities. So what is it that is there? How can it be used in your area, or in my area? What is it? How I can use this new technology? And the people working in businesses have to upskill. So it's you can't hire all the data scientists and the AI specialists that you might need in order to bring it into your business. So it's something that we do as well. We upskill our workforce in these areas. So I think my 10 minutes are over, but happy to go on or answer any questions you might have specifically in that space.
Any questions? Anyone's got any questions?
I've got one.
Yeah.
Detlef, what for us do you think is going to be the next wow factor where everyone's going to go, wow, AI can do that? Is there any one particular thing?
I think we have seen the wow factor in terms of image recognition and voice recognition. What we're seeing now is things like these interactive robots.
Yeah.
And they migrate out of your phone into little devices that can move about, as supposed to entertain your family and speak to you. They're not very good yet. So if you've seen at the CES, LG tried to market one of theirs, complete failure. Probably they lost Wi-Fi connection because these things only work if they're connected to the cloud. The compute doesn't happen in the device. But things that we'll see that is kind of humanoid robots, so where they have facial expressions, that they look and act human. They're driven by the same kind of capabilities that your Alexa is driven by, so it's not that great. But that could be something where people say, oh, wow, I didn't know we're that far. But this is a little bit a fake, because the capabilities are not really there. They're not really human-like. They don't understand you. They don't have an understanding of context or the situation. But it looks impressive. So if you can have an animated face that can express emotion while it speaks, that looks very convincing. And that's probably something where you have to take a step back and say, okay, what's really behind it? And that's I would say this will have a big impact on the population because it looks so convincing, but it might not be. In terms of technology, I would probably think cars are the next thing that we are likely to see. In businesses, it's more mundane. It's the exploitation of data and the automation of decisions. And there it's important to be ready for this, to have your data in good shape, have your systems in good shape. But this is not really visible to the population at large, but it's important for the businesses.
Thank you.
How do you see AI affecting agriculture and food distribution? Not only distribution, but gathering of food and drink.
Yeah, that's not really an area I have looked in before, but I had a chat just when I joined. So it's really interesting what's already possible. So I wasn't aware that you can pick strawberries mechanically right now. So we see a development on several levels. So there's AI, which is kind of making decisions and taking sensor data and interpreting it to make the right decision. But at the same time, there's an improvement in things like sensors, in actuators. So building like robotic machines, they become much smaller because of better technology. So that means there are a lot of new opportunities to deploy them in areas where they couldn't be deployed before. And you can think of using drones to fly over a field to measure and count. These kind of things will be possible based on some technology that has been developed, based on sensors and like drones. But on the same time, the image recognition and the interpretation that is done on the AI side. So combining AI with these kind of new technologies will enable a lot of exciting applications, I could think. And I wasn't really aware of agriculture, so it's definitely something I will look more into to see what happens there.
Forward to that. Well, you go first.
So one thing that we face in Challenge, and I'd be interested in your views, is the hurdles of adoption. And what's going to drive the pace of adoption? Will it be technology? Do you think it will be sociological factors, or will it be legislative and litigation? I'd just be interested on the perspectives of where you think that the hurdles will come for adoption.
So the hurdles for adoption that we see are typically around the business organization and the kind of systems you already have in place. So if you start a new business, you have all the opportunities to buy the latest tech, and you won't have a lot of problems. If you have an organization where you have used IT for 40, 50 years, you have a lot of legacy systems of all of different ages and sizes and capabilities, and bringing them together is a challenge. And so the adoption there sometimes then is not happening because the data and the systems are not in shape.
So do you think evolving markets will then adopt sooner than developed markets? So per se, I'm going to labour on China, because it seems to me. Do you think their adoption rate might be sooner than what it would be for Europe because of the legacy information?
Yeah, I could imagine this. I mean, we have the only example that I'm aware of where something like this has happened is in the east of Germany. After the reunification, they had a kind of an inferior telephone network over there, and that was completely replaced by Deutsche Telekom. So the eastern part suddenly had a modern fiber network, while the western part still had this mix of copper, fiber, and whatever. So in an area where you kind of start from scratch, you will see adoption happening much quicker. And I mean, China as an example, they just announced they are going to invest $2 billion into putting up an AI research park somewhere near Beijing. So and they announced publicly that they plan to overtake the US in their efforts. And so the current president has not said anything about AI yet, as far as I'm aware. So yeah, I can see that in areas like China we'll see quick adoption and growth.
Thank you.
I suppose the question I was going to ask was you were saying for the business community, be aware, be alert, have a sense of what's happening. And I suppose with my background, the little that I do know about AI is in relation to agriculture, and a lot of things are being done in the lab. And we talk about needing translators almost, because the science is so detailed. So I wondered, in IT, is there the same language need for a translator? You just said, make sure your data's in good order. Would any data person within an organisation know what you mean by that? Because for me, that doesn't work in that environment, I wouldn't.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to tease out a little bit, how as a business what should you be listening for? Is it translation, or should that not be an issue if you're not actually in a laboratory?
It's kind of awareness on board level. So the data person would know, but maybe the CEO doesn't. Right? So, and understanding where you should invest in which parts of the business, where you have maybe old technology, is it worthwhile replacing it or not? understanding the opportunities has to happen at the level of the people who make the investment decisions. And there's a cartoon that was in the Financial Times 2 years ago. It said, no, we're not replacing you with a robot, we are replacing you with someone who knows about robots. And so this is points out that the people with the business acumen have to also learn about the opportunities that the new technologies bring, because only then they can make the business decisions and the investment decisions going forward. So it's I go a lot to a lot of these data science industry meetings, and the companies who are most successful have board-level functions for data science, for example. So board-level functions for data science and AI is probably what we need in order to stimulate the growth.
Would you consider an AI forum for Northern Suffolk? Would that be a feasible concept?
Yeah, I'm sure it would be. It's we have a lot of universities who would be very happy to participate in something like this. I've gone to a lot of university meetings around. There were more around data science, which is very related, obviously, where local businesses and local authorities come to participate and listen. So arranging these kind of events is certainly possible, and I'm sure that not only we as BT would happy to help, but also the universities in the area would be happy to help.
Just trying to find an independent voice. I'm just aware through colleagues that there's a real push to use cloud technology, but in Norfolk and Suffolk, where our internet isn't perhaps as good or our infrastructure isn't as good as it can be, you can actually make life worse for yourself as a small business, because if you don't have good productivity, but then you're told, oh, put everything in the cloud, actually there's going to be more transactions and the whole system will get even slower. So the sense of having a place you can go to understand ideas without actually anybody trying to say, by the understanding of what it can do for me, you know, that forum that's sort of independent and says, this is what's available, these are the good things about it and these are the bad. Something like that you could trust because they're not directly selling.
I understand. I mean, typically consultancies would do this kind of thing, but obviously that costs you. So, but I could imagine that it would be useful to have something like this.
Good. Actually, it's 20 years pretty much to the day that my pal and myself set up a portal, Equestria.net PLC, in the days when we were all searching after the bubble, which was internet going online. And I had a slide, I've still got it, which showed a picture of the Wright brothers doing the first, I guess, the first flight, and the caption read, when the Wright brothers did their first flight, they weren't thinking of frequent flyer programs. and I've carried that all the way through, because my job back there was to go to business and some large businesses and talk about the internet and what it would do, and there was a blank look right back there, and look where we are now. When I get in my car, my mobile will tell me how many minutes it is back home and what the traffic's like. I haven't even asked it a question. So there's some real exciting visionary stuff around this, and I guess it's up to all of us to take that vision forward, to drive it, to make it happen, to enthuse people about it. Certainly in my world, which is agri-food, massive developments, laser zapping of weeds, so we don't need agrochemicals, guys. I mean, the world starts to look completely different. Never mind growing everything inside, so we don't actually use soil. It's John Shropshire talks about the fourth agricultural revolution from my point of view, but actually I think the whole world is going to look completely different. Scary in some ways, bit like 20 years ago and the frequent flyer programs. No one even thought of them when flight started. Where this takes us is interesting, and I hope this forum has been useful to sort of highlight it and basically take this. I know we've got relationships in terms of developing with China, which is part of what we're doing. So all it leaves for me, first of all, is to thank Doug and his team for hosting today. We really appreciate it. And Annie in particular for putting all this together with her team. Thank you. It's been useful, stimulating, and certainly food for thought. Thank you.
Can I add one more thing before we leave? I'd like to particularly thank Locks Legal for sponsoring this event. So thank you very much, Graham. Much appreciated.